Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has just fired shots back at Donald Trump after the DOJ have apparently opened up an investigation into Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve. What does this mean for the markets? Am I still bullish? Do I think the stock market will still push to new all-time highs soon? Or is that now off the table due to this latest development? Also, what's going on with crypto? Am I still long on Bitcoin? I called out a long trade on my crypto on my X account the other day ago. So, am I still long? What are my targets? Stay tuned to find out, and let's jump into it then. So, I'll just go on to screen share, and we're going to start with Bitcoin then. So, as we can see, Bitcoin has been consolidating for one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, about 9 weeks now. So, we are looking for a resolution to this consolidation at some point, and it remains to be seen which way this market's going to go. We've obviously pushed up. We've got the resistance here at 94,000 on several occasions. This is where the sellers have been showing up, and on the downside, we've actually had a series of higher lows, which can often actually be a bullish thing in a more sort of sideways or uptrending market. This would be known as an ascending triangle, equal highs, higher lows. However, with this coming off the back of a large down move, often consolidation after down moves leads to continuation, and without a doubt, I think there is a big risk that we come down towards this 73,000 to 69,000 level at some point. At some point, I still do think we come down into this area and eventually down to this 200-week moving average, which Bitcoin likes to tag on all prior bear markets. It always seems to come back down to that level. So we've got some areas to be looking at in the short term. Obviously, as I've talked about in the past, we have, where's my delete button? Right, let's do it that way. Sorry about that. New laptops are getting used to it. We have talked about the fact that I expect in the short term, Bitcoin likely to come up and potentially make its way back to above 100,000. So this is the sort of path that I put on this chart. If we actually look on the daily, we can actually sort of see it in a bit more detail, actually what I've been looking at. So I talked about the potential for us to come up and challenge 94,000 once again. If we get above that 94,000, certainly on the fourth attempt, I would like to think that we should be able to break through that. And then potentially we get this run up to around 104,000. So the question for me really is, does the market come off here back down towards this level here and retest these lows a final time, putting in a bit of a fake out here below this ascending trend line? So that could look something like this. If we move this across, that might look something like this, or we could even come lower, sweep some liquidity from these lows before running higher. Or does the market just decide to go sort of straight up from here? I'm undecided. I'm really undecided what it does from here. The other possibility is we come up here for a fourth time and this is some sort of fake out higher, and then we come lower and then we get the bounce. So at the moment, you just kind of have to trade this level to level, day to day. And certainly what I'm leaning towards at the moment is probably the push up from these levels up towards the 100K. So this is obviously something that I've sort of talked about, the fact that I think we could sort of push back up here, consolidate, and then start to break out towards 100K. Obviously, what would be the invalidation of this? Well, the invalidation of this really for me would be a breakdown of this sort of zone here. So if we did come in and retest this level, I'd want to see a quick wick through before a potential move higher. If we started to lose these levels of support, certainly under 87,000, then I think that's it. This is shaping up to be a breakdown of this consolidation, and eventually we would probably see price levels in the low 70,000s, unless we saw, like I say, some sort of very fast reversal in here. So yeah, just going on to this chart as well. This is where I've got another path drawn. We can see that yeah, I have been targeting this move back above 100,000 at some point. However, if we yeah, if we kind of move on from this move, I think we do get this move at some point. After this move, I do then see a move coming down lower, and I think ultimately we do see lower prices over the course of 2026. I've still got us bottoming out around about the 32,000 to 40,000 range on Bitcoin. So, yeah, short term for me, still a little bit undecided, still in that long. But yeah, I think overall, I'm viewing this as a longer term downtrend at the moment and expecting lower prices for the rest of this year. And if we actually just go onto my X account, we can see here, I've said on this morning's video, so this was back on Friday of last week, that the bottom for Bitcoin might be in. Obviously, I'm sort of standing by that at the moment, that I think the bottom could be in. Obviously, I've shown where I got my entry there. Um, Obviously, if we do start losing this 89 level, that'll be the first warning sign that we're going to come lower. We're going to test that 87, and a loss of that level, I'll be getting out of that position. So, yeah, very much just waiting to really see what happens over the next sort of trading day. Mondays can often provide a move in in sort of one direction, which then gets reversed on the Tuesday. So I will be open to seeing whether we actually get a bit of a pullback today before an attempt higher tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week. The other thing to bear in mind at the moment is the moon phases. So if we sort of look at our moons, we can see we've currently got a full moon or a bull moon which is in play. However, we're going to be expecting a bare moon to come up next fairly shortly. So if we look at when the last sort of bare moon was, it was around the 20th of December, around about the 19th. So around about the 21st, we'd expect to see the next one, which is going to be Wednesday of next week. So potentially this could be the last week for the Bulls to try and put in a move higher. Mind you, the last few haven't really done too much. I guess you could say the last one worked out, and we got a little bit of a pump, sort of approaching it, going into it. So yeah, just something to bear in mind. It feels like the clock is somewhat ticking for the Bulls here, and we really want to see a move up this week, or else we might indeed sort of see something like this happen into the end of January, and potentially we try and get that bounce in February. So obviously some other markets that are worth paying attention to is the dollar. You can see the DXY is actually on a bit of a rejection today. Maybe this is something to do with the market starting to look to interest rates and what's going to be happening with the Feds. We've seen a real massive pop overnight in gold and silver. So gold, silver approaching all-time highs. Silver actually making a new all-time high today. So let's see if that can be sustained and we can get some continuation on the precious metals. Oil, I have been looking at oil and it is breaking out of this trend line. It actually looks to me like it is at the moment a confirmed breakout. Obviously, looking potentially for a retest to go long, but I'm actually long oil myself here. So I think oil will catch up. A lot of the metals have been smashing to new all-time highs, a lot of commodities, and it feels to me that it's a little bit strange as to why oil is lagging here. Obviously, given the political tension and sort of geopolitical uncertainty, you'd expect oil to perform in this type of environment. So I think it's probably only a matter of time before oil gets going. I think probably the news around Venezuela being captured or having their oil captured by the US, I think that could actually be a bit of a bullish catalyst overall because, of course, the initial reaction to that is that, okay, all of this oil is now going to be pumped out the ground by the United States. Surely that's going to push the oil price to new lows because the market's going to be flooded with cheap oil, which is going to be supplied by American companies. However, obviously this is going to take many years to actually sort of get the infrastructure to be able to do that. So it is probably in the long term a bullish thing, but I think in the short term, especially given the uncertainty around sort of geopolitics and also the fact that initially OPEC could potentially decide to cut their production which would actually reduce the supply of oil in the short term. Obviously, demand is high because of all the wars going on, then potentially we could see oil prices start to rise. And also it's a bit of a counter trade to what maybe retail expect because obviously the headline is US takes control of Venezuela's oil. And I think very much the obvious assumption being made is that, well, that's going to mean we're going to have really low oil prices going forward. Let's sell oil, let's short oil. And I think that could make this a bit of a hated rally. So I'm looking at oil on the long side. And just going over to the stock market, then we can see that the stock market is pulling back, likely pulling back off the back of the news around um, the Jerome Powell sort of spat with President Trump. So we can actually see it here. DOJ threatening the Fed with criminal charges for refusing to follow President Trump's interest rate demands. So I think it's potentially like around a technicality with these new buildings, but ultimately Jerome Powell believes it's because he's not following the demands of the president. And we've talked about the Nasdaq breaking out at some point in Q1, actually getting above this resistance level here, which it seems to have done. So it's got above, it's fallen back below. So, we kind of had the breakout, then it started to look like it's a false breakout, but potentially this is one of those false breakouts where it's not a false breakout and it is going to start to accelerate to the upside. And you can see here that the levels in play that I've talked about already, 28,800 is the resistance to close above. And obviously on the downside, we need to really hold this where we are right now, 25,550, 540 as the support. So provided we can hold this as support today, potentially we will see the market have another attempt at this 25,800 level. That's a really key level to get above. If the Nasdaq can get above that, then I expect a move towards all-time highs to happen very, very quickly as early as this week. So obviously my bullish outlook on stocks is probably the one thing that is keeping me fairly bullish on Bitcoin and crypto at the moment due to the correlations. And we can see the S&P has made new all-time highs last week. It's just off those new all-time highs today. Obviously, Friday closing at a brand new weekly closing all-time high, as well as making a new all-time high. You can see a bit of consolidation in the pullback today. So yes, let's see where things go from here. I think other bits of news that are likely to be catalysts. I think this is one of the big ones. It's President Trump capping credit card interest rates at 10%. So he said this is going to start from the 20th of January, which has been interpreted as huge news. So let's actually see what happens there. But I think that is a potential bullish catalyst. Obviously, consumers being able to borrow at lower rates is liquidity being injected into the economy. So obviously, Donald Trump is trying to do whatever he can to get the economy firing before the midterm elections later on this year. And then this is another one I wanted to bring up. So if we just actually first go back to Bitcoin and just start looking at some of my sort of longer term targets, if I actually look at the path here, we can see I've been talking about Bitcoin potentially coming as low as around sort of 32, 33,000, coming back to these levels here that we saw back in July of 2023. Obviously, that would be probably driven by some sort of collapse. Maybe it's some micro strategy liquidation. Maybe it's a stock market crash, a flight to safety, like a broader overall sort of market panic for risk assets and a flight to safety that maybe happens later on in the year. I talked about maybe unemployment starts to rise or inflation gets going again. It could be due to a number of factors. But just looking at this guy's tweet, he's a guy that I follow, Tony Severino. He's talked about the potential for Bitcoin to drop 67.97%, so very precise from this Bitcoin weekly Kumo cloud twist. And potentially this puts the price down towards, he said here, 33,000. So a 68% drop below that twist takes us to 33,000. And obviously, that very much coincides with what I've got lined up in terms of the price levels I expect us to hit as more of a worst case scenario later this year. Obviously, it's hard to see how we get down to these levels from these prices. Obviously, the fact we're at 90,000 and already into what many people are starting to accept as a bear market, you might look at this and say to yourself, well, how are we going to get down to these prices? Surely there's going to be big support along the way at 69,000, and then we've got 60,000, 50,000. These are going to be huge levels, and I'm sure some of these levels will give us big bounces. But I mean, if you look back at the last bull market, a lot of people were looking at this and saying, like, we probably won't get below 30,000. This is the low, maybe wick below, and people were starting to get bullish here, thinking we're going back to the upside. When we did come down and actually break lower, people were saying, well, we wouldn't get below the 200-week moving average. It turns out we actually fell straight through that level. We wouldn't get below 19,000, the prior cycle all-time high, and we went all the way down to 15,000 in the end. So, yes, these bear markets can often go on for a lot longer than people think, and I think that's why I'm sort of keeping an open mind as to how low we can go here and why I'm not getting overly aggressive on the long side for any of these markets that are currently trading. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Obviously, thanks very much for watching. Like I say, little technical issue with the video earlier. So, like I say, I'm on a new laptop. I'm getting used to the laptop. I hope it's going to be a lot slicker when it comes to making these videos and sharing content, because my prior laptop was starting to pack up and causing me a lot of frustration and difficulties with how slow it was when I was actually recording. So this one seems to be a lot faster, and I think the production will be a lot better in time. I still need to get things like proper microphone hooked up to this, and yeah, there's a few things I'm wrestling with, a few teething difficulties that I'm wrestling with at the moment, but I should get on top of those over the next few days and weeks. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Obviously, thank you very much for watching. Please do smash the like if you have liked this video. Any feedback or any sort of tokens or markets you want me to take a look at, feel free to comment and sort of let me know. And yeah, have a fantastic day. Let's see what happens today. Obviously, it's going to be a volatile one. There's a lot of news bouncing around, both news that can be interpreted on a bullish side and also on a bearish side. So yeah, I think volatility probably is incoming, and as traders, that's kind of what we want, right? We want those big dips that we can buy into, or we want those sort of big pumps in the market that we can sort of take profits into, especially if we're on the long side or the short side. We kind of want those rips to be able to short into. So yeah, depending on your market and your outlook, then hopefully we do get some really good trading opportunities over the next few days and weeks. And obviously, I'll be here to share those and share what I'm doing myself with you along the way. So have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I will talk to you all on the next one. GM, GM, GM.